Right, so cardboard classroom. You may not know what it is, but this is your cow's pelvis, or as best I can draw it tonight. Your precursor before you're putting anything in calf is this pelvis correct? So ideally, and wherever possible, look at measuring your pelvic areas. So you're measuring width by height. Look at reproductive tract scoring. So if you get your vet to do it while they're in there measuring your pelvic areas, they will check the pelvis for any abnormalities. You can get pronounced ridges where the bones fuse at the bottom of the pelvis. You can get lumps and bumps around here. You can end up with not having a concave bottom to the pelvis if they've not, for whatever reason, developed properly or not had a correct exposure to hormones. And when you're scanning, you can find out that you've maybe not got a functioning ovary or anything else. So before you even consider putting your female to a bull or to AI service, make sure this pelvis is right. If this pelvis is right, you've got her in calf and you're presented with a cow that's not progressing with calving. You then need to consider inspecting and what to look for. So if your calf's there presenting normally with its feet side by side, all well and good, hopefully. So put your hands in with plenty of lube, go around your calf and feel in this region here and try and get your fingertips, and if you see down here, try and get your fingertips between the actual pelvic bone and the calf's shoulders. If you can get your fingertips in, and if you can do that on either side, or at the very least on one side and sort of into this depth, then you've got a fair chance you're going to be able to get that calf through the pelvis. But in tandem with doing that, and if you can, try and check top and bottom, because if your calf's tight in both dimensions, you've not got a lot of give. If it's tight one way, rotating it slightly typically gains you a bit more space, and bear that in mind. Other precursors for a big calf are the feet one on top of the other. If they're like that, if they're nearly overlapped, if they're coming out one directly above the other and the head's to one side, it's a fair indicator that the cow's pushed the calf up as far as she can into the birth canal, the shoulders have wedged and it's forced the legs together. Likewise, if your calf's head's hanging back behind the pelvic brim and you've got one leg up or two legs up but your calf's on its side and hanging down, it's an indicator of calf weight. If it's got a big heavy head hanging down, the rest of it coming behind ain't going to be light. So if we're back to this and trying to get difficult calves out, wherever possible, if I think they're going to come through with the shoulders, I will pull them with the bands on above the pastern joint as per normal, get the head and nose out, and if I think it's going to go all right, get the chest out. I will then release the pressure from the jack, let the calf hang, let it drain the fluid out of its lungs, let it gain its composure, and all being well, it will start to breathe independently. When your calf's oxygenated and more settled, you can then reconvene and continue to pull it. But while you've let the pressure off your machine, move your bands up above the knees so you're pulling on a lot stronger bone. I hate the stories I get of calves separating growth plates just above the pastern because they're an absolute sod to cast. Because your animal carries 3/5 of its body weight on the front legs, it exerts all that force through the good leg, and because your calf typically doubles its body weight in the first month, your chances of success casting front legs are nowhere near as good as casting a back leg. So bear that in mind, because if your bands are on the pastern and you're on a really hard pull, the weakest point is going to give, and that isn't the weakest point. your cow's not the weakest point, your calf's legs are. So be very conscious of that. I've done it. I did it soon after I got this because it exerts so much more force than the old type zinc. And the noise is not one that leaves you in a hurry. It makes you feel sick knowing that you've done it. And it's even more upsetting when you've got a live calf out. So this story of legs failing with casts on is not bullshit. It's happened to me. And going back to this and the force it generates, if you're on for a hard pull, you're ratcheting away nice and steady, feeling your feedback through your machine as it pivots, and you get to a point where your machine's come to just about over centre and you cannot get that next click, and you've also lost any of this movement here, you're at capacity. That's not going to pull anymore. If you're applying any more pressure than that, something else is going to give, or you're going to start causing trauma to your calf. So if you're at that point where you can't get that extra click and you're thinking, I'm going to swing on this, it'll come, it won't. That's your machine telling you to stop, let the pressure off, ring your vet. Now, calving doesn't always go to plan. You're not always presented with a live calf. So if it's the case that you've got a dead calf coming, because they're not alive, you've not got the nervous function in the animal and there's not the muscle tone anymore. So the shoulders tend to sag off the rib cage. The actual trunk of the calf doesn't have the muscle tone, so it tends to hang over the pelvic brim. Its legs won't follow it as it's coming out. The rump won't have any tone in it. It won't come out on a natural transit. So if it is a dead calf when you start and it's going really badly, and say you get the chest out and you get stuck at the hips and you can't rotate it, you can't gain any space, don't keep pulling it. Ring your vet and see if they'll come and do a fetotomy for you and cut the calf up, because there's no point in you mauling your cow to pieces with that and pinching the nerves in a leg and having to hip lift her for a week and all that crap when you can just get your vet out to cut a dead calf up. It's not an unknown thing. They're trained to do it. They maybe don't do it very often, but save yourself a total loss. Get your calf cut up to get it out. Don't keep pulling. What else can I tell you? Breech delivery. You've seen the video of breech, hopefully, or it's here on this channel on the Think Before You Think bit. When you're considering a breech, again, go in, check whether your rump will come through your pelvis. If it will, all well and good. But while you're in there, and if you can, either before you've got the calf pulled up or once you've got the bands on and got a bit of weight on your machine, put your hand back in again and feel top and bottom. Because if the back portion of the chest won't come through, the front half won't, because your calf is that shape, isn't it? The back end of the rib cage is quite narrow, but it tapers down towards its brisket and its front legs. So if the back end of the calf ain't going to come, the front definitely isn't. The other bit to consider as well with breech calves is if they're hanging down over the pelvic brim, the back end of the rib cage, with it being a dead end, can snag against the brim. So you'll think your calf's going to come and then all of a sudden, bang, stops dead. You're never going to make it come. Doesn't matter how hard you pull, it's not going to come up over it. All you can do is bruise your rib cage to shit rags and not get your calf out. Other incidents I've had with backwards calves is the front legs are knuckled up underneath them and they act as a complete anchor as well, and you can't get them out. In any of them circumstances, especially with breech calves, just don't bother jacking them. Leave your cow settled. Try not to stress your calf. Get your vet on the phone, get them out, section it. As much as this is about using a calving aid, it is only a calving aid. It is not a means of forcing a calf out of the back of a cow. You need to be mindful of that and always need to have it in the back of your mind, should I be calling for a section. Because a section saves trashing this pelvis. It means your cow has got a residual value if you can't get a backing calf again. And in the best case scenario, you've got a live calf out that actually isn't that stressed. Seizures don't stress your calves as much as you think. Hard carvings do far more at your calf. And on that subject, we'll get round to acidosis in calves, and I'll try and make another video on that as soon as I can. I hope everything I've said's been an education. I've not got all the facts, I'm not a vet, but I have carved a lot of cows, rightly or wrongly, and I do try and process everything I do. So if this is a help to you, if it's a guidance to you, if it gets you chatting to your mates, please like and subscribe to the channel, help push it along, follow on the social media, and if you want to support me anymore, go and have a look on the website, see if there's anything you want. It all helps. Thank you again. Best of luck with carving. And remember, that's a carving aid. Cheers.